packed traffic flow to and from Kinnick Stadium. So anything you could do to help spread that information to fans be greatly appreciated. We have a handful of starters that have class conflicts on Tuesdays. We will look into having them talk to you guys maybe on a Wednesday around an assistant coach Zoom in the coming weeks. And with that, we'll have the assistant coach Zoom start up next Wednesday, and that'll be at 11 o'clock. We'll have a transcript today, and we'll get to Coach Ferentz. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon to everybody. Appreciate that. So anyway, just say a couple words about camp, and then certainly look forward to this week's game against Utah State. Just starting with camp, I really think we had a productive camp. Kind of indicated that last week, and the first week of school is always a challenge, a little bit different environment certainly, and different feel, but thought the guys really did a good job focusing, and basically throughout the entire camp they really showed up ready to go pretty much every day. Good work ethic, good attitude, and that included last week right through the end as well. So happy about that. I think everybody's eager to move on to the next phase right now, and everybody's looking forward to being back on Duke Slater Field and having a chance to perform. So it never really gets old, and it really is invigorating to get into a game week and start facing the weekly challenges. So just a couple words about our team. I think we're in a little better situation health-wise than we've been the last couple of years coming out of camp. Happy about that. And the challenge right now is to transition into game week. It's a whole different mode of operation than what we've been doing, and I'm trying to work through that a little bit. Depth chart, we put one out yesterday, but really it's a fluid process right now, and I think we have a lot of good competition going on with our guys, so we'll see what it looks like as the week goes on, and check out some medical and situations on top of it. But so we're hopefully in a good position there. Regarding the sports wagering, just basically a couple words on that. Noah's appeal process is in process actually, and as I've said all along, we support him right now. Nobody's claiming that he's not guilty of certain things, but I think really what the bottom line is, we're just hoping for a reconciliation on this whole thing, or reconsideration, and I'm hoping that when the committee looks at reasonable people will reconsider the punishment, and just be anxious to hear how that all turns out. Regarding Utah State, just a couple words about the game. So our captains, start with that. Defensively, got Joe Evans and got Higgins in there, Jay Higgins. And on offense, we've got Luke Lachey and Cade McNamara will be the captains there. So a couple words about them. They coming off a 6-6 season. It was Coach Anderson's second year at Utah State. And prior to that, had a really good strong run at Arkansas State. Did an outstanding job. And if you look at what he did going to Utah State, they were coming off a 1-5 season in the pandemic year, and he and his staff led the team to 11 wins 2 years ago, and then came back 6-6. So he's had success everywhere he's gone. It's a unique situation. It's always unique in first games because of the new players. Not quite sure about the roster and all that type of thing, but especially at the portal and this new era, I think those numbers are probably higher than ever. So that part's a little bit of a wild card, but the bottom line is if you look at their staff, there's a lot of DNA there that's pretty consistent. Whether I know they lost their offensive coordinator, but that is what Coach Anderson specializes in. He's going to take that over. So I think we have a decent feel at least of what that looks like. Same thing with the defensive coordinator. You go back through his career, a lot of consistency there, and same thing with the special teams coordinator. So I feel like we have an idea of what to expect schematically, but you just never know, and that's true in any first game, no matter if the whole staff had returned. You never know who people get within the out of season. So a couple words about their team. Their quarterback is a veteran player, did a nice job last year. They're an up-tempo team. They are balanced run and pass, but they're an up-tempo team and spread. They've got a good returning receiver, so he's back. Heart and soul, their defense appear to be up the middle. They've got a defensive tackle, linebacker returning. And then kicking game. Their punter's a good punter, and they've got one guy on their team that blocked 3 punts last year, which is, you don't hear of that too often. So I think obviously we're going to, give him a lot of attention and be mindful of where he is. And then again, first games are always a little bit unique in that regard. So I think the big thing is for us to be, alert. We got to be ready. We got to be sound and fundamentally sound, and also do a good job with our communication and try to play it out as it goes. So, it's kind of the challenge right there. And then just word about the Kid Captain program. Again, just thrilled that it continues. It's been a great partnership, I think, between the hospital and certainly our program. So really thrilled about that. And we got Graceland, Springer's going to be our Kid Captain this week from Alburnett. A young lady who's been fighting cancer over the last 2 years, gone through extensive treatments, and has been under great care there. And the good news is that her cancer is now in remission, so that's great news there, and we'll be glad to have her with us. And just finish up by, just want to say thanks in advance to our fans. Their response has been great. It sounds like tickets sales have gone well, and I know they're anxious. We're anxious to see them in Kinnick. It'd be great to be back in Kinnick, and I've done this for a while now. And one thing about it, it never gets old. It's always exciting to have that opportunity to take the field in Kinnick and perform in front of the greatest fans in the world. So we appreciate that. And that being said, I'll throw it out for questions.
How do you describe the current status for Cade McNamara, and how have you seen him recover?
Yeah, I got hurt obviously a couple of weeks ago. Everybody got to witness that, and it's a strained muscle issue, soft tissue issue, and certainly started working at the end of last week. He's been practicing. I can't put a percentage on where he's at right now. He's been cleared medically. That's the good news. Then the thing we have to judge as we go along is how effective can he be, and can he go out and perform in a way that's representative of the kind of player he is. So look good in practice today. Well, it's kind of day by day. We'll see how sore he is tomorrow and see how he's feeling. And obviously we'd love to have him out there, but we also want to make sure he can perform at a high level.
So would you say questionable is sort of the right way to describe his status?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think right now he is certainly. And I know what he wants to do. I know how he's wired, and that's part of our job, just to be smart about it. And it's tricky. It's always tricky. So we'll just kind of take it day by day, see what it looks like. And again, the number one, I think, first and foremost, is what the medical people say. If you can't play, you can't play. But that hasn't been the case. So we just want to make sure he can play effectively and make sure he can play in a way that's representative of the kind of player he is.
Is it the type of injury which, if you play him, it could get worse, or do you need a little more time to heal it?
Not do damage. Otherwise, they wouldn't clear medically. Significant damage, but soreness and things like that. That's probably going to be part of the equation. And there's really no right answers on these. And then in all due respect, just about every guy on the team that's been practicing is a little bit sore and has issues. Nobody's at full strength, but really what it boils down to, in my opinion, is can he play effectively. And then second thing is, to your point, is that going to knock him out for 3 weeks if he does play? So, we just have to be smart about that.
If Deacon Hill were to start, how would you feel about that? And has Joe Labus returned to practice?
Yeah, a lot regarding Deacon, a lot better than 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago. And that's what camp's for, to watch guys improve. And if there is a blessing, when Cade was out, gave him every opportunity to work a lot. And then Joe just returned last week, at the end of last week. So it's good to get him back out there. He looks good, and he seems like he's fully healthy now. It would have been nice to have him the whole period, but we didn't. And so he's playing catch up. But I think that month of December really advanced him as well. Obviously, spring ball. So it's not perfect, but it's I think a healthy situation right now, and really impressed with the way Deacon is. And I think I might have indicated that last week, even his tempo, just that. But that's, you got to go out there and operate to do that. And I think he's taking advantage of that. He's doing a really nice job so far.
With Joe missing as much time as he's missed, does that mean Deacon is for sure the guy if Cade isn't available?
I'd say that's fair right now. But, we'll see how the week plays it out. And Joe started out probably further than maybe I would have expected. And that's good news. But I'd attribute that to the work that he got last year, especially in December.
Is part of Cade playing a matter of pain tolerance?
Yeah, it's part of any injury, that part. But that part I'm not worried about with him, because I think he's a pretty tough-minded guy. Just what you don't want to do is just, first of all, again, have a guy outperforming where he can't perform and doesn't look good, or just, isn't able to really get the job done, quite frankly, and that's not fair to him. It's not fair to anybody. And then, you got to consider, what's it going to be like, the day after, 2 days after, all those kinds of things. But, we'll see how it goes.
Did you file an appeal for the other 2 players who have suspensions but are not legally?
It hasn't been done yet. Talked to both guys about, if they want to do that and go down that road, they can. I'm not sure either will. I don't want to speak for either guy, but I'm not sure they will. In Noah's case, it's pretty obvious. I mean, they're talking about a full season. And again, nobody's in denial of what the facts are. It's just, I think the issue in my mind is just, is the punishment fit what the violation was. Nobody's, denying there was a violation. That's not the issue. But the issue is what's a just punishment. And I think that's a really valid thing to think about and just give consideration. It just seems like there's a common sense element that's missing right here.
Well, those players, I know the Big Ten just instituted a rule where you have to release who's playing, who's not playing 2 hours before kickoff. Will those players that are suspended be on that 2-hour list that won't play?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's not an injury, so I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that. Guess I got 3 days to find out. Yeah, that's a good question.
What are your thoughts on that new Big Ten availability?
I have no problem with it at all. I think it's probably a good initiative, and basically that's really where players are. They're able to go. Still some question, or they're not able to go. And one thing we've done, the last couple of years at least, is I'll typically, let used to be Steve, now Matt, know that a guy couldn't go, just so there's not the rumor mill going with the social media world that, like, did this guy, do whatever, or has he got malaria or whatever it may be. So just to, put all that stuff to rest. But yeah, so I think it's fine. I'm good with it.
So on Saturday, if you guys decide Cade won't play, would he be maybe you don't know this yet, but would he be on the inactive list, so to speak, or would you kind of hold that?
2 hours before we know he's not going to play, we'll put it on there. Yeah, we'll follow the rules. I'm all for it.
I mean, if he's I don't know, could he be in like an emergency situation, or if it's like he can't go, he can't go?
That's a possibility too. Okay. Yeah, that certainly is, and probably rather not go down that road. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. I guess then he'd be in the possible category.
Also, if Cade can't go for week 1, are you thinking more along the lines of having Deacon go the whole way, or as long as it's competitive, or would there be more of a rotation in place with some of the backups too?
No, I mean, first of all, we're trying to win the game, and that's paramount. And that's point number 1 to our team, is just understanding no matter who you're playing, and we follow rights. Any first game, you really don't know your opponent, top to bottom, and all I know is these guys won 11 games 2 years ago, and they had some good games last year too. Beat Air Force, who's a really tough out. So we got total respect for our opponent, and we need that each and every year. And we had a pretty good football team in 09, and it took a miracle to win that game against a FCS team. So if we didn't learn that lesson as a program, I know other people maybe are a little slow on that, but it's just the nature of the game that we play. It's every week's tough. But yeah, we're playing to win, and we're going to get the best guys out there. So if Cade can play the best, he'll be out there. If he's not capable, then we'll go to the next guy, which would be Deacon right now. But we're playing everybody, and we're playing to win, certainly.
What led you to want and pursue Hill?
I'm sorry?
What led you to want and pursue Deacon Hill?
It just kind of happened by coincidence also, or, by connection with John Budmeyer. John was involved in his recruiting. And we were just looking to upgrade the room like we are every room that we have in the building, every position. And, felt like he was a guy that could make our team better. Obviously, Spencer was out, not going to play this year. And then we had a guy transfer out, so we had spots to fill. And good to get somebody who had some experience and somebody we had some firsthand knowledge with. And so that's felt like that was a win-win situation. You never know until you get here and get in the program, but we've been really happy with everything we've seen.
What qualities struck you when you were looking into that?
Well, size wasn't one of them. It just kind of was a throw-in. He's the biggest quarterback I've been around, at least pound per inch. Chandler might have given him a run for the height. But he's a very impressive young guy. He's got a different personality night and day between Cade, very different personality. Throws the ball extremely well. And I think with each practice, we've seen him gain confidence. So there's, big difference there. Cade played a lot. Deacon didn't, but, felt like we knew enough about him, and it's always nice to have some inside information if people have worked with somebody, and that's we benefited from that, I believe.
When you say night and day personality, what does that mean?
They're just different guys. Like, Cade's a pretty aggressive, more outspoken, I guess, and Deacon's a little bit more reserved, I think, and a little quieter in terms of his personality, demeanor. But, it's like everything in life, all kinds of people have different personalities. Can you be good at what you're doing? And thus far, we've been really pleased with what we've seen with Deacon.
How long was Joe out for, and what has just been the process of him getting back on?
Joe Labus, just a soft tissue. It started mid-July, I think, so it was a significant issue. But, Mother Nature takes its course, so that's how it goes.
What's just how have you seen him kind of get back into the flow of things?
It's been great. I mean, he couldn't really throw the ball because of what he had. It was really that was kind of painful for him, but he's been throwing for a couple of weeks now, and now he's able to move around a little bit, and I think he's done good. And again, that's just maturity and being around. And actually, last December was a total initiation for him in our offense, other than spring balls, preseason. So he had gone through the whole entire season without practicing in our system, and now he's had the benefit of playing a game and doing that both in December and spring. So, he's a much better player than he was, say, last, December 1st.
When you look at
Regardless of quarterback, Kirk, have you seen the offense take the steps you kind of envisioned leading into the season?
Yeah, I think probably one or two words I'd use would be maturity or experience, and they usually go hand in hand. That's a big difference. I mean, you have to be a math major. We had one scholarship receiver at this time last year out there on the field, and our offensive line, somebody threw an article on my desk about starts. Coincidentally, somebody else in the building had done a study on that. He pulled Linderbaum out of the equation the last 2 years. We haven't had a lot of experience up there. Or you think about a guy like Colby had, 11 starts going into last year, but there was a true freshman where he was just trying to survive, in all fairness to him. So, it's just a whole night and day situation right now. We got a lot more experience and, a little bit more maturity in both those groups. So, it's a big part of, putting a successful team together. And we're not as experienced in all positions as we like right now, but, it's something you're working on, just like talking about Joe Labus. That's what practice and reps are for. Deacon, the same thing when the guys are out there. If they're doing a good job and practicing the way they need to, and I think a lot of guys have done that this summer, this August. So I think we've probably moved along a little bit. But that's the biggest difference right now, maturity and experience.
When you look at the offensive line, I think, according to your chart, you had Colby moved to right guard where he started 11 games 2 years ago, but DeYoung, who's been all over the place, started 4 different spots at left guard. Is there a reason why one maybe fit a little bit better on one side of the ball?
Yeah, so Connor could go left or right there, but we're going to keep him at guard. We're not going back to that experiment. I took ownership for that. So we'll keep him at guard, and he go left or right. That's not a big deal. Nick is probably the unique one in the group right now where I think he can go in or out and probably play all 4 positions. We haven't put him at center. So that's kind of the deal. Ellsbury can probably play both guards and center. Get my tackle straight. We're not messing with Mason. We're not messing with Dunker. He's staying there. And sink or swim, he's staying there. Won't go to guard. He has played guard. So I think, we kind of got a rotation. Nick's kind of the swing guy, if you will, and then Rusty Feth can play both guards and probably could play center in a pinch too. So feel good. I mentioned Chaplin last week, not that, but, it's just an illustration of this maturity part. He came here as a guy nobody really thought much of, and last year wasn't bad, but this camp, he looks like a, legitimate Division I football player out there. So, he may be our second center. I don't know. We're keeping an open mind, just letting guys practice and see how they do.
You've never seen a month of Nick Jackson now.
Yep.
What are your observations on him?
Pretty much like what we had hoped for. He's a really mature guy, operates at a high level. He's playing catch up. There's a lot of communication that goes on. It looks like we don't do a lot on defense, but there's a lot of communication, a lot of intricate little things. And the linebackers are the switchboards for that, so he's really been playing catch up on that since he wasn't here last spring. But he works at it. He's got a lot of pride, and he's an intelligent guy, so he really works at it. And I think he's getting it down. And he's versatile too. He can play both positions, inside, middle linebacker, and will. So I think he's everything we hope for, and he's also assumed a leadership role on top of that.
Speaking of the offensive line, what have you seen from Mason Richmond these last 3 years?
Well, seeing a guy, just like we talked about a minute ago, seeing a guy on a journey, if you will, and it was a battle of survival year one. Last year, better than, but also he's playing with an injury last year, which required surgery in January, and so now he missed all spring, but was back at it in June, and now he's fully healthy. He's got 2 years of experience, and I think he's practiced at a really high level. Just mentioned about Nick taking a leadership role, and Mason's done the same thing, and appreciate that, but he's also earned the right to do it too, because he's been out there and competed hard and done a lot of good things. So it's really happy with his progression so far.
You mentioned going out and playing, or going out and competing doesn't get old. What do you remember from the week leading up to your first season as Iowa's head coach?
Not much. Yeah, not much. Yeah, I'm reminded of a Bruce Nelson line because I asked him, who was our left tackle in that game. We were going. He got an award for a walk-on award at one of the I clubs. And I was playing against Vander Bosch from Nebraska, and he was at 250. So I remember we were driving in the car, and I asked him, I said, must have been a tough night Friday night, going to bed that night thinking about Vander Bosch and first start in college football. He's a walk-on redshirt freshman who we'd moved from tight end the spring before. He said, yeah, I slept like a baby. I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He said, I didn't sleep the week before that, but slept like a baby the night before. So that's probably the boat I was into, yeah. But, a little bit better now.
You were referencing the 09 game. It's easy on the outside after one game to kind of come to some bold conclusions, but how much do you take away from a week one game considering the larger body of work ahead?
You got to keep things in perspective. Excuse me. And, anything can happen in any game, first of all. Certainly first games, it's the case. And whether we win or lose, it's one game, and it's a long season. A lot of things can happen in the next three plus months. So, whether you win a squeak or lose a squeak or get blown out or blow somebody out, it's just, it's one game, and you got to move on, and you move on fast and hopefully learn from it. But obviously, it's more fun to win, and we were very fortunate that day. But I don't think anybody that day would have predicted, I was going to say bet on us to be, but I don't change that. Nobody would have predicted us we're going to win the Orange Bowl that year. So it's just, that's a good lesson for everybody. It's a long season. A lot of things can happen. There's a lot of twists and turns. And, the more you realize that and just appreciate that, the better off you'll be.
You mentioned receivers, and that last year you had like one scholarship guy the first game, but is that maybe your most improved position group going into this season, just in terms of bodies and numbers?
Yeah, it's like a neck and neck race with the offensive line, I think, in the receiver position. And the problem last year is just our lack of experience up front and maturity, physical maturity, and you can't microwave that. I've said that many times. And then the receiver position is, we were out of guys, for injuries and transfer and all that. And there's not much you can do. You play the guys, you play with what you got, and that's how it goes. And sometimes the cards you get dealt are a little bit challenging. But, the guys worked hard. I'm not knocking anybody's effort last year, but that was the reality of it all. And I think we're in a little better situation right now. You got a healthy Nico Regano, you got a healthy Deontay Vines. Start with those two guys. Two pleasant surprises from the month of August are Seth Anderson, who we thought we liked, and when he got here, and we've liked him as a person, no knock, but we couldn't evaluate him as a player because he wasn't out there in the spring. So now, he's had a really good August, and boy, he's a very impressive young guy. And then Caleb the same way. He wasn't here last spring, so not much to say on that one, but I'm excited about him and the fact, too, that he's only played receiver 1 year, so the growth potential, I think, is really, and Seth is a young guy. He's not like a 5th-year or 6th-year guy, so both those guys have the potential to really improve and climb if they keep practicing like they have. Alec Wick got back. He's back practicing. That's a positive. I'm leaving somebody else out. Who am I leaving out? But anyway, the whole group is just, we're a lot further down the road than we were a year ago.
Curious your thoughts on the new clock with the...
Yeah, not many. Anxious to see how much it affects us, but the idea is to shave a couple plays off and make the TV time shorter, I think. And the easiest part to start would just cut 4 minutes off halftime. Nobody would feel it, except I got a feeling the events people wouldn't be happy. So probably not going to win that battle because that never comes up in meetings. It's always about, can we do this? Can we do that? So whatever.
If the question with Cade is how effective he can be, not necessarily that, he is medically cleared, you said.
Yeah.
Do you have a threshold on effectiveness? Like, does Cade have to be 100% Cade McNamara, or can he be 95% Cade McNamara, or 90%?
Yeah, I've never been with him during the game, so it's hard to quantify that a little bit as a coach, but I guess what I mean by that, play in a representative way. If a guy can't throw the ball the way he's supposed to or needs to, that's not helpful. Always worried too about can a guy escape a little bit, and I don't know how good he'll be at if the pocket's closed and then just throw it out of bounds and we either punt it or take our chances on the next play. Those are the things that we got to figure out. But he's got to be able to move and be effective that way. Because it's hard to be perfect offensively. It's impossible.
Is Jennings Dunker your starting right tackle at this point?
Right now, he is. Yeah.
What do you like from him? I mean, I know that was a little bit of an experiment.
Yeah, he got thrown out there. I think he had maybe 5-6 days in the spring where he practiced, and even when he's doing things wrong, he was actually being pretty effective. So that kind of intrigued us, and hopefully he's doing more things right now than he was back then. Just little technique things and things that make you be a bit more proficient. He's starting to really learn the little intricacies of playing there. He's still a young guy. I mean, if you think about how much he's been on the field during his 3 years on campus, it's a pretty small window. He's been a lot of injuries, and I can't remember if he got COVID or not, but he hasn't been out there enough to, so that's the race he's running right now, is just getting used to. He's certainly strong enough and all that stuff. He's aggressive, but just learning how to play, that's a big challenge for him right now, but he's doing a good job.
With Noah's situation, it seems like Aaron might be someone that you need to step up.
Yeah, he's done that. I mean, he started that. He's the one guy last spring who made the comment. I don't remember how many guys in their first year that have been. He just practices at a really high tempo for a guy his size, and it's an unusual trait. But last spring I was just impressed with the velocity he comes off with. He's still got to learn how to play. I'm not minimizing that, but so it's not like he's out of place, I guess, with big guys, at the varsity. And he's done a good job in August. So obviously these last, 3+ weeks, 4+ weeks have really helped move him forward as a football player. And Wyatt Black's done a good job. And the other guys, Pittman, Jeremiah's really improved. A year ago, he was a scout team guy, but right now he's a legitimate player. So. That's what you're hoping for. You hope to see young guys develop, and all those guys I just mentioned have done that.
With Aaron, just what did you see when you recruited him?
I almost use the freak word. I don't want to do that, but I mean, there aren't many. I mean, he came in here with like 60 hours. He's graduating next spring as a second-year guy. He'll be teaching. When some of our guys are coming to school, probably be teaching here. He's a really focused, driven guy. Wrestled, played basketball, 4 or 5 sports in high school. He's just he's a guy who achieves. He really has a great attitude, works hard, and So I mean, my sister could have figured that one out. My sister Joel, I'll mention her. Yeah, she could have figured that one out.
Kirk, when you in the spring, the talking point was about Brian's contract, 25 points per game. Has that come up at all among the players? Did you address it with them, or did it just never come up?
Not a discussion point. They may talk about it. I don't know. You'd have to ask them, but it's we're worried about winning. That's what we're worried about, just like we always have been.
I know in talking to Brian this summer as well, you think of the Purdue game, 24-3, or the Wisconsin game where you could have kicked a field goal if you wanted to, I suppose. Is that kind of the bounce back to what's 25 points versus 24?
Yeah.
Winning.
So I just mentioned my sister Julia. I'll mention my wife Mary, who's a pretty wise person, and she said this about 40 years ago. I don't know. She goes, seems like if you win, everything works out pretty well. And that's kind of been a guiding principle. Like, it's not all about winning, but it is a barometer. So it just seems like if you're successful enough over the long haul, good things happen. And if you're not, it's not so good. So that's kind of where our focus has always been, just trying to win games, and it's as simple as that. I think part of our problem, probably, just one person's opinion. Sometimes people don't like how we win, but to me, the objective is to win. And I do know this, it may not be true with the committees they got now. But at the end of the year, like, they really don't care who you beat or how you beat them. You know, when they start thinking about what bowl game you're going to, if you're going to be in the playoffs or the Big Ten championship, all those kinds of things. So every game's different, every situation's different and unique, and the objective is to find a way to the winner's line. And I mean, bowl game, you know, both teams playing without a quarterback that ever played. So what's the best way to get there? And you know, in essence, we protected the ball, they didn't, and you know, we walked off with a victory. So you just try to map out the best plan to win, and that's really what. And that's my job as a head coach, is to make sure everybody in this program, they need to benefit from that kind of thinking, and that's, you know, otherwise I'm not being fair to our players or our coaches or our fans, for that matter.
When it comes to style of play, it's almost an outlier in this day and age to just win this way versus some team that may give up 35 points a game but scores 60, and they're hailed as a great team versus one that wins.
I got two thoughts on that. So I could probably get fired for this, but like one of my favorite all times wins here was 6-4. I mean, you know, and so maybe I'm revealing my inner, you know, the inner reason why we are struggling this way, but like, you know, that was the best way to win that day, and taking the safety. You know, and I just had a feeling like they weren't going to move the ball on us, and you know, they threw it right back to us after the punt there, coming out of the off the 20. So, like, you know, you just try to figure out what's going on that day, and you play to that end. And then, you know, I think probably the most important stat, if you want to rank coordinators, would be wins per coordinator. Like, how many wins does this guy average when he's the coordinator? You know, and trying to think, I've been around 4 coordinators. Oh, no, that's not true. 5 in my career here, if you include assistant, and 3 defensive coordinators during my 34 years. And those guys all have pretty good numbers in terms of, you know, the amount of wins they were involved in as coordinators. And that should be a coordinator's job too. What's best for winning? You know, whether it's, you know, blitz or don't blitz or all that stuff. You know, it's got to be in the back of everybody's mind. How can we win this game collectively?
Your offense typically leans a lot on the tight end position.
Yep.
And they're more of a known quantity than, say, wide receiver, offensive line. But what have you seen out of them this camp, and what's really impressed you the most about that group?
Yeah, I like the group. You know, Lachey really started to do that last year, really took off and ascended, especially when Sam was out. He just really took off. And we kind of, you know, hoped that was going to be the case when we recruited him. Thought he had a lot of upside. Eric Hall's a pretty, you know, he's demonstrated success on the field in Big Ten play. Addison's really come on as a young guy. Good job last year, and he continues to climb. And then Steve Stylianos, it's not the same as Van Valkenburg, but it was, you know, kind of quiet last year, and this year he's really done a nice job spring and in August. So I feel like we have 4 pretty good guys there, and that's a good, healthy number. So we'll keep utilizing those guys, but we have a little bit more help on the outside than we've had.
It's going to be another sort of heavy dose of multi-tight end.
Yeah. I mean, you know, talking about being evaluating coaches, like if our 2 tight ends aren't on the field a fair amount of time, like that would be maybe cause to, you know, start wondering about what's going on here. Kind of like, you know, I'm not comparing them to Fenton, Hawkinson, but it's, if you get 2 high caliber guys, yeah, you want to use them. You want to use our best guys at every position.
You got to look at the last new intro video yesterday with Ricky. Crazy.
I've not seen it, but I saw Ricky when he was here cutting it, and yeah, I'll bet it's good. I did, you know, we saw him when he was an Army captain. I can imagine pretty animated and pretty good.
Sure. So what do you remember about, you know, when you hear that name, his impact? It's crazy to think 15 years since he kind of grabbed it.
Yeah, talking about personalities of players and all that, and Ricky was, you know, more, you know, Ricky was free spirit's not the right word, but you know, he had a knack of big personality. The most important thing is players are going to follow him. And Ricky had a personality very different than Brad Banks, who I understand is going to be here this weekend. Brad is one of the quietest guys I've ever been around, and yet people just gravitated towards him. They really followed him. The same thing with Rick. You know, Tate. I mean, the guys that have won here, they've had that attribute. You know, they've been able to, that quality. Guys are drawn towards them, and they follow them, and they believe in them, and that's however you get that across, whatever your personality is, that's what's important. But yeah, Ricky was a really unique guy, and yeah, I mean, his interesting fact, it was like he had to throw a pick 6 to get warmed up, and that's, fortunately, we're good enough to overcome it usually. But yeah, just great performer, great guy.
All right,
thank you. See you Saturday. Yep.
really quick.